Right now, you know exactly what time it is. Glance at your phone, your watch, the corner of your screen. Done. But take away every clock on Earth, every phone, every watch, every sundial, and drop yourself anywhere in the world. Could you tell time? Not roughly. Precisely enough to know when to plant crops, when to start a hunt, when a ritual must begin. For 99% of human history, that wasn't a hypothetical. That was Tuesday. And the answer to how they did it is going to change the way you look at the sky forever. Let's start with the most basic clock that has ever existed, one that's been running for billions of years and is still running right now. The sun. Specifically, the shadow it casts. Stand a stick upright in the ground at dawn. Its shadow will be long, pointing west. As the sun climbs, the shadow shortens. At noon, it's at its shortest. Then it lengthens again, swinging east as the sun sets. That's it. That's the entire mechanism. No gears. No moving parts. Just a stick and the rotation of the Earth. Archaeological evidence shows that humans were tracking shadow movement with deliberate markers at least 5,000 years ago, and almost certainly far longer using nothing more than memory and observation. Ancient Egyptians refined this into what we'd recognize as an actual instrument, the gnomon, a vertical pole whose shadow was measured against marked positions on the ground. By dividing the day into shadow lengths, Egyptian timekeepers could tell not just morning or afternoon, but specific hours that notably changed length with the seasons, because daylight itself changes length with the seasons. Their system wasn't trying to match a fixed 24-hour grid. It was matching reality. But shadows only work when the sun is out. So what happened at night? This is where it gets interesting, because the night sky turns out to be a far more precise clock than the day ever was. Stars rise and set in predictable patterns every single night, shifting slightly with the seasons but holding steady within a single night. Ancient Egyptian priests used a system called decans, specific stars that rose at regular intervals throughout the night, essentially functioning as a 24-hour star clock. Watch which decan star is rising, and you know roughly what hour of the night it is, every night, for your entire life, because the stars don't lie and they don't stop. Now here's where the scale of this gets genuinely hard to wrap your head around. Polynesian navigators used star paths, the specific point on the horizon where a star rises and sets, to cross thousands of miles of open ocean with no instruments at all. But star paths aren't just useful for direction. They're seasonal clocks. The appearance of certain stars on the horizon at dusk signaled exactly when it was time to plant, when to harvest, when storms were coming. Entire agricultural calendars, accurate to within days, were built on nothing but watching where specific stars appeared in the sky at specific times of year. And this is where ancient timekeeping stops being about hours and starts being about something much bigger, the calendar itself. Because here's the problem ancient humans had to solve. A day is easy to track. The sun rises, the sun sets, that's one day. But a year, the time it takes Earth to orbit the sun, is roughly 365.25 days, and that quarter-day remainder is brutal. If you don't account for it, your calendar slowly drifts out of sync with the seasons. Plant your crops by a calendar that's drifted by a month, and you don't get a smaller harvest. You get no harvest. And that means people die. So how did ancient civilizations, with no math as we'd recognize it, with no telescopes, with no WR, you get no harvest. And that means people die. So how did ancient civilizations, with no math as we'd recognize it, with no telescopes, with no written numbers in many cases, solve a problem this precise? They built machines. Stone machines. 4,000 years ago, in a field in England, a group of people dragged stones weighing up to 25 tons, some of them transported from over 150 miles away, arranged them in a precise circle, and aligned them so perfectly that on one single morning each year, the rising sun slides directly between two of them. That's Stonehenge, and that alignment marks the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, with an accuracy that modern engineers have measured and confirmed down to a remarkably tight margin. But Stonehenge isn't alone, and it isn't even the most precise. In Ireland, a 5,000-year-old structure called Newgrange has a narrow opening above its entrance that lines up with the rising sun on exactly one morning, the winter solstice, flooding a chamber deep inside with sunlight for about 17 minutes before darkness returns for the rest of the year. One morning. 17 minutes. Out of 365 days. And they hit it, every single year, with stone and dirt and an understanding of the sky so precise it would take modern surveying equipment to replicate without trial and error. Here's what makes this genuinely mind-bending. These weren't one-off lucky alignments. Structures like this exist across the world, built by completely separate cultures with no contact with each other, all converging on the same solution: use the sky itself as the calendar, and build something permanent enough to mark the one moment a year the sky lines up exactly right. But not every civilization solved this with stone circles pointed at the horizon. Some solved it with something far stranger, by trapping time itself in water. Around 1500 BCE, ancient Egyptians built devices called water clocks, stone vessels with a small hole near the bottom, filled with water at sunset. As the water dripped out at a steady rate, marks along the inside of the vessel showed how much time had passed, hour by hour, even in total darkness, even with no stars visible, even on a cloudy night. This was the first timekeeping device in history that didn't depend on the sky at all. It depended on physics, gravity, pressure, and the steady, boring, completely reliable behavior of water finding its way through a small hole. The idea spread. Ancient Greek and Chinese civilizations independently built increasingly elaborate versions, some with mechanisms that rang bells or moved figures when a set amount of time had passed, essentially alarm clocks, thousands of years before electricity. Chinese engineers built water clocks accurate enough to regulate the activities of an entire imperial court, dictating when officials should arrive, when ceremonies should begin, when the night watch should change. An entire bureaucracy, run on dripping water. Think about what that actually means. Two completely different ways of solving the same problem existed side by side for thousands of years. One civilization points stone at the sky and waits for one morning a year. Another fills a jar with water and watches it drip. Both work. Both are time. The universe doesn't care which one you use. But there's a piece of this story that's even stranger, because not all of ancient timekeeping came from the sky or from clever devices at all. Some of it came from inside the human body. Your body has an internal clock, a roughly 24-hour cycle called the circadian rhythm, and it doesn't just regulate sleep. It regulates hormone release, body temperature, alertness, even when you feel hungry, all on a near-precise daily cycle that runs whether or not you ever see the sun. For most of human history, this internal clock and the external sky clock were in constant sync, reinforcing each other every single day. Hunter-gatherer communities have been observed waking almost in unison around dawn, with remarkably little variation, not because anyone announced it, but because everybody in the group was running the same ancient program. In other words, ancient humans weren't just reading clocks in the sky, or building them out of stone, or filling them with water. In a very real sense, they were the clock. Their bodies, their stars, and their stone monuments were all running on the same underlying rhythm, just expressed three different ways. And that brings us back to your phone. The time displayed on it right now is the result of all of this: thousands of years of shadow watching, star tracking, stone aligning, water dripping, and body listening, compressed into a number that updates itself silently while you scroll past it 100 times a day. You never have to look at the sun. You never have to learn a single star. You never have to fill a jar with water and wait. The knowledge that took millennia to build, and that once meant the difference between a harvest and a famine, between life and death, now exists so you don't have to think about it at all. Next time the sun sets, just once, don't reach for your phone. Look up. Watch the light change. That shift you're seeing, that's the oldest clock that has ever existed, and it's still running, exactly on time, just like it always has.